My name is Heather Asbil, and I live in Halifax. I work with ISANS, Immigrant Services Association of Nova Scotia, with the Growing Strong Neighborhoods project. I grew up in a family where my mother gardened a lot, and we grew a lot of our own food. Both of my parents grew up on farms, so I'm sort of one generation from being on a farm. So it's kind of something that I grew up with and was important to my family. The last few years, starting in about 2009, 2010, we started to receive people from Bhutan via Nepal. So they had been in refugee camps in Nepal for the last 20 years. And they were farmers in their countries of origin or in their country of origin. And so they started to say that one of the things that would help them feel more at home, and one of the things that was missing from their lives here, was growing their own food. Community gardens were a place to start with the process of growing food, at least somewhere close to where they lived, and fulfilled a certain need that people had to get their fingers in the soil and to grow their own food, especially for the older members of that particular community. A sense of home that they feel because it reminds them of their childhoods, of their lives before. So for people who have been displaced, I think that's pretty significant. In some of the gardeners, I've noticed a significant change in their sense of well-being. I definitely noticed shifts in how they felt about other aspects of their lives. They seemed happier, they seemed more settled, had a sense of belonging or a sense of purpose that allowed them kind of to feel a little bit more confident in other areas of their lives. When we started in 2012, there were no community gardens, as far as I know, in Fairview or Clayton Park area. And now we have 4. There's been another one established by a separate community group, kind of as a response to the interest that has been generated through some of our community gardens. So I think it's definitely changed Fairview and Clayton Park, an area of the city that hasn't had community gardens. It's brought people together in ways that are kind of unexpected because gardens are spaces that people can literally just walk up to. There's no barriers, literally. There's no walls, so people can walk up with their dog and ask what somebody is growing, and there's a reason to engage with someone else. It's harder, I think, to walk up to somebody that you don't know and who comes from a really different background than you on the street. To just ask them a question is difficult, whereas if you walk up to someone in a garden and you can ask, "Oh, what are you growing there?" and then engage in a conversation, it I think seems easier to a lot of people. So I think there's transformation of relationships in communities as a result of some of the gardens, between neighbors and between people within the gardens. Different immigrant communities are coming together and learning about each other, and mainstream Canadian communities are learning about immigrant communities in ways that maybe challenge assumptions that people have about refugees and about immigrants. I think in general what I see is people's skills being valued, like agricultural skill, being valued in a way that sometimes we don't value in this society. Because the gardens are made up of people who are from here and who are migrating here, it creates a nice place for people to get to know each other in non-threatening ways, for sure. Food is such a basic thing that crosses cultures and languages and so on. So I feel like in the future there's lots of room for people to come together around food and advocate on common issues where they might see themselves as quite different, but for example, somebody living on income assistance and somebody who has just arrived in Canada as a refugee are receiving roughly the same amount every month might see themselves as being in quite different situations, but in reality, there's many things that they have in common that if communities can come together around things, they can sort of share resources and advocate for change in ways that I think is kind of impossible to do with, on your own, or when one community does it, it often ends up people getting pitted against each other. So in terms of people coming together on certain issues around food, I think there's lots of possibilities for this kind of work. I also would love to see a community food center in the Halifax area. So just thought I'd throw that in there.